We know, Bryan, you've seen the studies as well, that if a woman goes into a free weight gym, she will gravitate towards the lighter weights because she thinks that that's where she should start. We need to be able to do progressive overload in our workouts, right? And when I see you coming out of Walmart with 20 bags and your grandkids thrown up your shoulder, I know you can lift more than the 2-pound dumbbell.
Welcome back to Busy People Getting Fit, the show where we help you navigate real life with real solutions. I'm your host, Bryan White, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to have a phenomenal guest joining us. Amanda Thebe is a powerhouse in the health and wellness world. She's a fitness coach, speaker, and Canada's first menopause educator. She's also the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Menopause. Oh, I've been practicing this.
You can do it, Bryan. I believe in you.
Menopocalypse.
Yes.
Menopocalypse. How I learned to thrive during menopause and how you can do it too. That, by the way, is like choking. I've been practicing. Hilarious, brutally honest, and empowering guide to navigating the wild ride of perimenopause and menopause. Welcome, Amanda.
That killed me. That's so funny. Thank you for having me. Hi. And it's so funny because it's so obvious what it means. Menopocalypse. It's like
correct.
And I was like, and the amount of people that have like apocalypse, and I'm just like, come on.
Well, we're gonna dive right in, and you know, I'm talking to my clients, I'm talking to podcast listeners, and honestly, I was telling them about this episode, and how in the world is it possible to thrive during menopause or perimenopause, which for many women is the most difficult, frustrating, and confounding experience they have ever had?
You know, why is it? Because it's never been a topic of conversation, Bryan. Like, I've been talking about this for 8 to 10 years. My book came out 4 years ago now. And when I started talking about it, it was like, what's perimenopause? And now it's in our lexicon and we're using it more and more. And so I feel like we're getting some traction, but there isn't a general understanding of exactly what happens to a woman's body. Not like there is when we go through puberty or pregnancy, which is very clear to us. Menopause is still somewhat like mysterious, you know?
Okay. So give us just a high level view of what's happening in a woman's body at that point.
It's so funny because you keep saying high level, and I don't know anyone that talks more than me, but I'll do my best. I love talking. Menopause is broken down into 3 distinct phases. A woman will spend most of her adult life in one of these menopause states. So it's really important to know that menopause isn't something that comes and goes. From the age of like 38, 39 onwards to around about 51, these average ages, a woman will go through the lead up to menopause, which is called perimenopause. And many of us know the word, at least now, perimenopause. And peri means around menopause. It's sometimes called the menopause transition. Our main reproductive hormones, which are estrogen and progesterone, start to decline, and we can be in this phase for between 8 to 10 years. So it's a significant amount of time. A lot of the symptoms don't make a ton of sense to women, but we have estrogen and progesterone receptors all over our body. And so we have 34 known symptoms of menopause that don't make a ton of sense. But actually, if you were to ask women on the street, they'd say, come on, there's more like 100. I mean, there's a crazy amount of symptoms. And it's because the decline of estrogen fluctuates as it falls down. And then progesterone just does this like crazy, like slide down quite quickly. So a lot of women are presented with symptoms that might come and go, might be worse at one stage. They might minimize at another. It's a bit like playing whack-a-mole with your symptoms. So it's usually the most symptomatic part of a woman's menopause journey. Most doctors can't help women because they don't have the training, which we can maybe touch on later. Menopause is the next stage, and that's a retrospective. You're essentially looking back and going, okay, it's been 12 months since I've had a reproductive cycle, a period, and therefore I'm in menopause. And really it's just a timestamp. And usually we have a party, Bryan, and fireworks and a big afternoon tea. And then anything after that is considered to be postmenopausal or menopausal, a sort of interchangeable word. And you're in that state until the day you die. And that's usually an average age for a woman is 81 in North America. So you've got potentially like 30, 40 years.
So death is at 81 in North America, and menopause is at roughly 51.
Yeah, so you've got like 30, maybe more years. And usually most women's symptoms die down in postmenopause in the 2 to 5 year window following menopause. It's really just important to finish on this point, though. So we can live quite happily with this low level of hormones because essentially we're going to stop reproducing. That's the whole point of menopause. We can't have babies anymore. We have these low level of reproductive hormones in our system that we can live with in our body, but because of the low levels, it puts us at higher risk for some of the health issues and diseases that impact us as we get older. It increases our risk. Things like cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, being insulin resistant or having diabetes, potentially Alzheimer's. So there's things like that that we need to be aware of. And menopause sort of accelerates those a little bit.
Okay. So what should women, I mean, as you know, you mentioned kind of the late 30s, 38, 39, starting that perimenopause. What actions do women need to start taking once they start having those symptoms?
Well, for me, it's being educated. I don't know how we could move past that point. I'm looking at your bookshelf thinking, you're a man that likes to read about health and you need to know what's happening. And you obviously want to serve your female clients. Reading, listening to the podcast. Social media drives me crazy about getting some of the content, but you can still get valid content there. But essentially, just find knowledge and information in your 30s. And I will say from a personal point of view, I know things started to change for me after my last child, age 38. Stuff started to change. My cycles got a lot shorter. That was the first thing. And I never understood what it was. And so when I would go to my doctors about individual issues, that's all I got help with. Whereas if you look at the full body,
you got help with the individual issue.
Yeah, because most doctors don't have the ability to be able to help if they don't know what's going on, and they will help you for the thing that you talk about in that crazy 8-minute window that you've got. And so if you, as a woman who's potentially going through perimenopause, already know it's going to happen, like you know puberty is going to happen, then get the education, and then you have agency. Then you literally are in the driving seat and you can go, I want to talk about my perimenopausal symptoms. I want help. I want treatment. Listen to me.
Okay. So on that topic, how do you advise women to advocate for themselves when they're talking to their doctors?
So it's very difficult, right? Because you have a very limited amount of time. Some people don't have health insurance. If we're talking to Americans here, you really are just scrambling to be heard a lot of the time. There's not a lot of menopause specialists out there, but doctors are becoming more and more informed. So if I was to give you some advice, it would be don't go into your doctor's appointment without being armed with information. So that means over a month, maybe 2 months, track your symptoms and just do it in a notebook. Write down how you are feeling. It might be that you've got chronic fatigue and you might not think anything of it, but that is a non-symptom of menopause. Tin joints, hot flashes, migraines, depression, whatever it is, write it down on a scale of 1 to 10. And then before you go to your doctor, summarize that. Have a 1-page and just go, I had 120 hot flashes and my joints ached for 50 days out of 60. I don't care how you do it, but present the information and explain that you know this is because of perimenopause, because you've already become educated by my book. I mean, that's a really great way to be educated.
Okay.
And
Menopocalypse.
Yeah, that's
Menopocalypse. That is the name of the book, Menopocalypse.
And then also know what treatment options are available to you, because a lot of doctors don't know. And there's a few ways to get that information. And while we're here, I might as well tell you the FDA on their website have all current regulated FDA approved therapies for hormone and for menopause, some which are hormonal, some which are non-hormonal. If you're in Canada, the Canadian Menopause Society has them. They're available, right? On my website, I have all of the resources. And then say you want to be considered for, if it's hormone therapy you want to talk about, I'd like to be considered for hormone therapy because I'm in perimenopause. This is a summary of my symptoms. You've taken 2 minutes of his time up so far. If you can't help me, I need a referral. You need to lead the conversation for sure.
Got it. So you mentioned hormonal therapy. What other type of therapies or what other actions would you recommend women take?
Well, if you're symptomatic, you don't need to suffer. That's the first thing. And a lot of women we generally just go, oh, I can cope with that, or I'll just put up with that. And you don't need to. There are very safe medical options out there. And the medical options are split between hormonal and non-hormonal. The hormonal ones, menopause hormone therapy, is considered first line safe treatment for things like hot flashes, insomnia, bone health, vaginal issues. That's considered first line. Not everybody can take it. There are contraindications. Not everybody wants to take it, Bryan, right? And not everybody does well on it. I'm a good candidate to put my hand up and say, I tried hormone therapy, made me feel like shit. Actually made me feel worse, right? That's not uncommon, right? So it's a drug. You need to find what works for you. It might take a bit of finagling, but you can get there. If you're not a candidate and you're still struggling, there are off-label medications that are pharmacological, like anti-seizure, antidepressants, that have got an off-label microdosing that helps with a lot of the symptoms. And there's also new drugs out there for hot flashes that are brilliant for women who can't take hormone therapy. Outside of that, our role as coaches plays a huge part. And that's probably what you want to talk about, I would suspect, from your standpoint.
Well, so, I'm personally interested in helping my clients in every way possible, right? And let's also keep in mind that I'm married with 3 daughters. And so a lot of my whole mindset is about, it's about serving them. Yeah. But yeah, I'm also a big believer in limiting, when I can, limiting pharmaceutical treatments, right? You're not going to come to me and me talk about it and me say, go take a pill or a drug, right? And even if you do those things, there are side effects and backlashes that we can feel. So, I think everyone should be moving every hour, lifting heavy weights, eating plenty of lean protein, fruits and vegetables. And so out of all, what is your recommendation?
Well, you just took my words away from me.
No,
I will say that, we're all opinionated when it comes to things. And when it comes to, I've realized working in this space for a number of years now that I'm very opinionated, but I also think that we have choice. We have choice as human beings, and we can make the choice based on our own personal circumstances. And the thing about menopause is every single woman will go through it if they live long enough, right? It's not a disease. It is something that is a rite of passage to them, but it doesn't mean it's easy, right? So it's as inevitable as tax and death, but both of those can be painful, and there's ways to reduce the pain. And so, when you're talking about pharmaceuticals, it might just be that it is the only option to get women moving again and get them to the place where we as coaches want to be. So my approach to this is what the menopause societies advocate for you. This is something you can consider, but regardless of whether or not you take any medicines, supplements, I don't care. There are lifestyle interventions that you need to be looking at because we have proven data about them. Yeah. And it's really a nuanced conversation, Bryan, because if you've got a woman that's depression, she's got migraines, she's peeing her pants every time she jumps up and down, she's got chronic fatigue, and you say, well, I want you to jump up and down every hour, she's going to go, well, go fuck yourself, Bryan, because, I'm not going to, I'm just going to eat this cake and I don't care what you say. And you might have to beat me out. I'm a bit of a potty mouth. But so we have to meet women where they're at during this phase, because one of the things I'm very keen to push is a positive message through menopause. It can be, I think I even posted about this the other time. Can be a time for us to stand up and become the women that we're truly meant to be. And we learned from perimenopause, and we learned through some of the suffering as well, but it doesn't need to be as hard as it is for a lot of women, right? And then when you're with someone who's really struggling from maybe a mental health perspective, because that's huge in perimenopause, we need to be able to help them as coaches to understand that while it might not feel like what they're doing is making a difference, we know from a health perspective and from a longevity perspective, it is. And so the woman who sat on the sofa eating cake, we can say to her, look, we know you're struggling, but you're going to feel better if you go out for a 10-minute walk. I guarantee it. So look every day for a win. Try and find something that makes you feel better than you currently do. And so, we have our ideals that we want people to meet, but somewhere along the line, we've got to sort of introduce them sometimes slowly back in. And I know as a coach, you will do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're not on this podcast to promote my book, but this is what the book does. I mean, it says step 1, go for set 5 minutes on your watch go walk outside in one direction for 5 minutes. When it dings, turn around and walk back. Right? I mean,
Because what's going to happen? I doubt a single person in the world will feel worse for doing that than not doing it. Because we understand what happens, but for the brain chemistry, for our nutrients to get around our body, the blood to flow, we understand how impactful that is. And even if you don't immediately feel it, the consistency, the showing up, the increasing the amount of walking you're doing with your like 365 approach, these micro habits really make a difference to our future health. And there is some evidence it can impact our symptoms. It can reduce the symptoms because stress is one of when estrogen starts to decline, it has an impact with our cortisol. And so we need to start having like a better stress response, right? And the best way to get a good stress response is to exercise. And when you have a better stress response, our symptoms can start to reduce.
Yeah. So when you talk about exercise, what type of exercise do you recommend?
Well, what I would like people to do and what they can do, are different things. First of all, I believe every woman is more capable than she thinks she is.
I can guarantee that. That is the number one issue I have with clients in my gym.
And statistically, we know, Bryan, you've seen the studies as well, that if a woman goes into a free weight gym, she will gravitate towards the lighter weights because she thinks that that's where she should start. Now, I'm not one of those people that is like, women should lift heavy shit, because I think it misses out some of the nuance there, right? But we need to be able to do progressive overload in our workouts, right? And when I see you coming out of Walmart with 20 bags and your grandkids thrown over your shoulder, no, you can lift more than the pink 2-pound dumbbell. Don't give me that crap.
Preach. That is exactly right. That is exactly right.
Oh my God, I told you I could talk. So my ideal would be moving every day, like start somewhere. Okay. You know that. You've just said that. Move every day. Walking is underrated. And I think that although that 10,000 steps was like an arbitrary marketing sort of number, I think if anyone can do between like 7,000 and 9,000 steps a day, it's going to help them. We know that, right? Yeah. Get out and move every day. If that's an entry point to you, make it something you commit to. Meet a friend, get out of breath, have a coffee. I don't know. Do what it takes to get outside. Wear good clothes. If it's snowing, put some warm clothes on. Anyway, so moving every day as much as humanly possible. Strength training clearly is the queen of all of the exercises we should be doing for so many reasons that could be a whole podcast episode on its own. But we know just through aging and being sedentary, sarcopenia, we're at risk of that. There's an acceleration.
Sarcopenia, sarcopenia is muscle. Muscle loss. Just like osteoporosis is bone density loss, sarcopenia is muscle loss.
Yeah, and your lean mass and your bone health do get impacted through menopause. So actually, that's one of the two of the risk factors of menopause, because estrogen is intrinsic to those processes. So strength training is the key to offsetting those losses. And that's starting in your 30s. We know that it's going to bump up in our menopause, and we need to be thriving in our old age, right? So this is proactively caring for ourselves. And then heart health, the risk of cardiovascular disease it's the number one killer of women. It increases through menopause because estrogen is cardioprotective. But we know that 80% of cardiovascular disease can be improved with lifestyle interventions, in particular, like the nutrition that you talked about and getting our heart rate up. And so if I could get people to do some cardiovascular work as well, I mean, listen, we can go down to the mobility, the flexibility, the balance, but what as coaches we can do, what I do in my book as well, and I'm sure you do in your training, is that we know how to combine these things. We know how to give you unilateral exercises. We know how to work the stability muscles. We know that strength training and full range motion improves mobility and flexibility. So for the general population, I don't think they need to care about the small elements of it. But if you start strength training and you move every day, you're going to start feeling a ton better, and you're going to almost bulletproof your body, like moving forward.
I love that. Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement. What is your opinion or your experience with someone trying to do it on their own versus finding a coach to help them on their journey?
Well, I think it really depends as your entry level. I think when we talk
Okay.
about it, so I believe every person can strength train, and there's an entry level for everyone. We've all been beginners at some stage.
Yep.
I'm following actively these women on social media that are in their 70s and 80s, and they're just starting strength training now, and they're building muscle, and it's working for them, right? They're reversing all of their health issues. So first of all, if you're somebody who has never set foot in a gym, or somebody that even wants to work out at home and has never done it before and is nervous, we know women, one of the barriers to entry is that they're scared.
Yep.
They're intimidated going into a gym, and they're worried about hurting themselves. If you have accessibility financially to work with a coach, I would definitely recommend it. Even if you just get like 3 or 4 sessions just to work through some basic form, just so you understand biomechanics. Small group training classes can be great for that, where you get like a coach with 5 or 6 people, and they can keep an eye on you.
Yep.
Also, that's motivation. That'll often help you go back. But sometimes I just think with people who've never worked out before, working with body weight exercises, they can fiddle things about themselves and try things out and see how it works. And then they usually get curious. And usually when you get curious, you're like, what else can I do?
Yeah.
And most people I know will look to the coaches that they really love just for inspiration and advice and education. So
Yeah.
I do think coaches offer a really great addition to exercise, but I also know that not everyone can afford them now.
Sure.
Spending all the money on eggs, apparently, aren't they? In America, so
Yeah. So on a kind of a more personal question, what does your workout training look like?
Well, I actually really struggle with seasonal depression, and I'm in Toronto, and I've really struggled this year. And so my workouts, I lost it. I went into a very dark place, and so I'm sort of in the almost back at the beginning again, but ideally on a regular time when I'm not sort of stepping back into the ring, I do go for a walk every day. I try and get about 7,000 to 10,000 steps. I mean, I just want to make that active walk. I usually go and walk out and buy dinner for the family. Like strength train 3 to 4 times a week. I don't really do any more than 30, 40 minutes.
Okay. And what does strength training look like to you?
Well, strength training to me is I tend not to do body part workouts. I'm not doing this for the aesthetics. I am very much in the functional movement space. I like to do full, and what that means for anyone who's not 100% sure listening, I don't know if it's coaches or general population, is like I would much rather do a deadlift over doing just like a bicep curl. I'd rather use more of my body in an exercise and more muscles and more joints so that I get a really good bang for my buck. I like to do supersets. So I do I do an antagonist exercise. So I might do a lat pull down with a squat. So I tend to work in a rep range of between 8 and 12. If I'm doing deadlifts, chest press, maybe squat, or a leg press, if I do that, I might go down to a 5 rep range, lift a little bit heavier. When I see influencers on social media saying every woman in menopause should be doing 3 to 4 reps and lifting heavy, I'm like, no. Actually, they're going to hurt themselves. That's just so stupid. I've been strength training for 30 years, and I wouldn't do that for anyone in the beginning. And then I actually like to do some cardio stuff, and that really is more for my mental health. I know it's good for my body, but I'll go out for a 5K run. I learned to swim age 50 4 years ago, and I learned in Texas when I had long COVID, and I now do open water swimming. So in the summer, I do that in the lake here.
Okay. Well, awesome. We are getting ready to wrap up. So I want to just make sure if you could give our listeners one action to move forward, what would that action be? I know you only get one.
I only get one. Oh my God. Read my book.
Read your book, Menopocalypse. The book is Menopocalypse.
I'm serious. I'm serious. Get informed.
Okay, perfect. Get informed, read the book, Menopocalypse, How I Learned to Thrive During Menopause and How You Can Too. And then how can listeners best reach you?
So my name, Amanda Thebe. You can go to amandathebe.com or find me on Instagram. I'll apologize now. I'm a tiny bit rude. I sort of quite like to be a bit rude. But I also try and be informative, right? So Amanda Thebe on Instagram too.
Amanda Thebe on Instagram. And I will put a link in the show notes down here. I'm pointing down where the show notes will be to your website and to your Instagram. Well, thank you, Amanda. We really
Yeah,
enjoyed
thanks,
having you on the show.
Bryan. It was great to speak to you. Thanks for inviting me.
Yep. And we will have you on again, and we will talk next time.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Hey, that's a wrap for this episode of the Busy People Getting Fit podcast. I hope you enjoyed this honest and empowering conversation with Amanda Thebe. If you want to dive deeper into everything we talked about, go grab a copy of Amanda's best-selling book, Menopocalypse, How I Learned to Thrive During Menopause and How You Can Too. It's packed with real stories, practical strategies, and no BS advice to help you or someone you love take back control during midlife. And hey, if there is a neighbor, a coworker, family, friend who you think might want to learn what you just learned, click the share button, send this episode their way. That simple gesture might be exactly what they need, and it helps our podcast grow. I'd really appreciate it. Until next time, remember, progress starts with one small step. Do something today, no matter how small, to live a longer, happier, and healthier life. Have a great day. Bye.